Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Mental Monday. My name is Alicia Creekmer, licensed clinical social worker, and I am excited to have you all join us tonight for Mental Monday. So, if you could share, make some comments, invite someone to tune in tonight, you're in for a treat. And again, Mental Monday, as always, it's a educational space. It does not take the place from a relationship with your individual therapist. Is just a educational moment. So I hope that you find something educational. And I want to introduce tonight's guest. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Tiffany.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Olds. I'm also LCSW, like Alicia, and so that's a licensed clinical social worker. And I am really excited to chat with folks and hope that people get some use out of tonight's conversation. And in particular, we're talking about self compassion and self criticism. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
So I'm excited about tonight's topic. I think that it is a timely conversation, and self compassion and self criticism is something that we all deal with in some way, shape, or form, or have dealt with, or may deal with in the future. So I hope that, again, something is said tonight that will help you with your mental and your emotional health. So, again, this is just an educational, informational purposes only. So if you need any professional help or anything, please feel free to inbox me, and I can give you some resources to support you. So we're going to go ahead and dive into tonight's topic. Again, I thought about this topic and just thought it was timely. I know that we all sometimes just have our own struggles. We can oftentimes be our worst critics, and I think that it's important that we practice self-compassion. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Tiff. What do you think in your practice, and what do you see as far as when we talk about self-criticism? What are your thoughts
yeah.
on that?
So I think one of the things that I hear a lot is like when we talk about self compassion
Mhm.
or self care, people feel like they're buzzwords. They don't
Yes.
know what to do with that sometimes. They're like, okay, does that mean like I just need to talk nice to myself all the time? Or I just
Mhm.
need to go, bubble baths and massages and things like that?
Right.
Where self compassion is really being kind to yourself. It's
Absolutely.
making space for
Mhm.
yourself, your whole being, everything like good hair day, bad hair day, all the things.
Absolutely.
Um, and then it's also like having time for mindfulness. So I
Right.
think of self kindness, just being human and accepting that about yourself, and
Mhm.
then having space for mindfulness. So acknowledging your emotions, knowing that they're there, and
Yes.
not letting them define you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's really, really good. A lot of times, again, we can just be so hard on ourselves that when we're practicing that kindness, that self compassion,
Mhm.
it kind of feels icky, or like you're, I don't know, being self absorbed, but it's very, very important, and it's helpful as we navigate through our lives, and that we're, just being kind to ourselves.
For
Um,
sure.
yeah.
And
So
we
what we,
forget that we're human. Oh,
yeah,
sorry, but we
no,
forget
no,
that we're human,
no,
right?
no,
Like you're supposed to make mistakes. You were
absolutely.
supposed to have those moments, and perfectionism, right? Is such a thing
Absolutely.
that pops up in our heads where we are
Mhm.
sometimes our harshest critics on
Absolutely.
ourselves. And if we are really thinking about how to be kind, if we're really thinking about just being human, right? Like we are human, we put our shoes on the same way every day, and
Mhm.
being mindful, that could really support our overall well-being.
Absolutely.
Where that self-criticism, right? Like being
Mhm.
that inner critic, that's when we're judging ourselves harshly.
Mhm.
That's where shame,
Mhm.
anxiety, low self-worth, that's where that lives. And it
Absolutely.
festers the more negative conversations that we have, even the things that we may not be saying out loud, but that
Mhm.
we're saying to ourselves. That
Abs-
criticism can really weigh on us.
Absolutely. So why do you think we as individuals are so hard on ourselves? Like, why do you think
Yeah.
we're tough
There's a
critics?
Yeah, there's a few things. So comparison is one of those things. We're comparing ourselves against unrealistic standards, just
Yes.
period, right? Social media sometimes influences that. Sometimes things that we see on TV,
Mhm.
but also sometimes we're just comparing ourselves to other people, our neighbors,
Yeah.
the people that we work with, and I think that's a big piece of it.
Mhm.
Uh, personalizing failure.
Ooh.
We don't do something well, for some reason, that then reflects our self-worth. So if I stutter all over this and I just make mistakes the whole time and I say, oh my goodness, well, I had this speaking engagement and I just fumbled it and I'm terrible, right? That's this narrative that I'm giving myself. So
Right.
that comparison piece
Mm-hmm.
is major.
Uh-huh.
Personalizing failure,
Right.
and then just the harsh self-talk, right? It's just, oh, I'm never gonna be good at this, or oh, I'm always messing up, or oh, I did it again, right? Like
Right.
those things I think really feed into self-criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course there's some deeper things there, right? Childhood experiences, societal pressures, perfectionism, as I talked about a little bit earlier. But
Mm-hmm.
those things really feed that
Absolutely.
self-criticism.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times people don't realize, especially the childhood piece, that how, developmentally things happen, through your childhood that can really impact you as an adult and really impact, how you view yourself. And a lot of times people don't realize just the impact of the family system on how that impacts that. So I think that's good just to, help people understand that. So when they're in this space or they find themselves being so critical, that they understand the root cause of it. And once they understand the root cause, they're able to, see that and kind of, if they need a therapist to help them navigate through that, dig that stuff up. I think that's very, very important and helpful for everyone to understand that sometimes it's your childhood and, things that you've dealt with over time.
Yeah, for sure. Those experiences make up a lot of that negative self-talk that we had. And yeah, definitely from early childhood, but also your teen years, your young adult life, your college or like first career experiences, all of those things have some sort of play. And it's hard to unlearn things, right? If you learn that making
It
mistakes is one of the worst things that you can do, well, that's really hard to like
Right.
work through that thought and to like change your mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's a comforting place for you to live in that space because it's just your norm. So, trying to sometimes adjust that and kind of like turning on a light switch to the opposite of that can be really, really hard. And that's when, therapists come in and, just having that supportive community that's helpful to help you first identify it, because a lot of people are dealing with it and don't even identify it or even realize that, hey, this is a problem. This is, something that I'm dealing with. So I think that that's important. And I'm glad that we're having this conversation just to have some dialogue and to help people, identify these areas in their
For
lives.
sure. And I think when we're like thinking about how our brain works, there are some things, they're called cognitive distortions. There are things that our brain like latch onto for whatever reason, right? Like we talked about experiences in your childhood,
Right.
things that you're just walking into at work, but all or nothing thinking, right? Like
Yes.
it's either got to go perfect or it's totally failed. When we know that there's all this gray
Right.
space in between, right? But
Yes.
right?
Right.
Lots of gray. But sometimes our brain will jump to that and it's either everything was great or nope, this was terrible.
Right.
Overgeneralization too, where we're viewing a
Yes.
single
Yes.
negative thing, right? You could have had an intensely great day. And at the end of the day, you made some sort of mistake, or you realized there was something in your teeth all day, right? Or you spilled something on your clothes and you're like, oh my gosh, I wasn't as put together as I thought I was today. And that little thought, right?
Right.
That generalization, overgeneralization is like magnifying something small in your day to make it feel like it's
Right.
this huge negative impact. And that's
Mm-hmm.
also, it's a thinking error. Sometimes it comes up as like catastrophizing or
Yeah.
my favorite is should or ought to statements. I should have done this, or you ought to have done this.
Uh-huh.
And when we have
Right.
that little nugget in the back of our head, it pops up out of
Mm-hmm.
nowhere. And you alluded to something earlier, which is like, what do we do? Right? Like, okay, we have to be
Right.
aware. The first step is being
Yes.
aware of that inner critic and the thing that you do.
Yes.
Are you constantly overgeneralizing or exaggerating or catastrophizing an event? Or are you
Mm-hmm.
minimizing things? Sometimes we minimize the greatness in our day. And so that can
Right.
have us being really critical of ourselves. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and self criticism really can lead to anxiety, depression, lower
Yes.
self-esteem,
Yeah.
imposter syndrome, which you
Yes.
could probably do a whole session on imposter syndrome alone, right?
Yes.
Sure, right? Like for real.
Yes.
Self-compassion, that encourages resilience, emotional well-being. That's where we feel motivated to do more, to be our best self. So
Right.
we have this information. So what do we do with it? Like, oh, what do we do?
Right.
Identify those
Right.
negative self-talk patterns. Start to recognize them. A good question is, would I say this to a friend? With a friend, with somebody I love, would I let someone I love say that to themselves? And usually the answer is no, right? If your friend told you about this terrible thing that happened at work and how they just like, I'm getting fired tomorrow, you would tell them, oh, come on now. No way. You did not do
Right.
that bad, or this was okay. And then fact checking. How bad was this actually? You know, what proof do I have that this situation is as big, or that I am not good enough, right? Like, where are your facts?
Right.
Where is your, because feelings are real, they exist. Like you get to feel those, but sometimes we have to fact check them. And so I think those three things are helpful. Would I say it to a friend?
Definitely.
Identifying those negative
Right.
self patterns, that negative self-talk, just starting to be aware of it. And then, you know, thinking about like, all right, now, what is this fact or is this feeling? Is it true I'm not worthy, or am I just feeling that way right now? You know?
Yes. Yes. And I just want to pose this question to people that are listening. What is one self-critical thought that you've had recently? Where do you think it came from? Could it be your past experiences, societal pressures, or even your own expectations? And that's just something, we want you to just to ponder that, when we're talking about this self-criticism, and we have these thoughts all the time, like she was saying, after something, you could have done this presentation, from the biggest thing to the smallest things, we are sometimes very critical, but I want you to think about a recent situation that you may have experienced, and think about, as you're criticized, maybe dealing with self-criticism, where is this coming from? Past experiences, maybe in the past you may have not been successful with something else, societal pressures, we are constantly on socials, we're seeing a lot of things, our eyes are constantly just being inundated with so many different things, and the societal pressures that are oftentimes not even real, because everybody's showing the highlight reel of their lives, and even our own expectations. So just think about those things and just ponder, just ponder that, and just think about that as we're navigating through our lives and our day-to-day situation. So just something to think about for the audience. And I think that that's another thing that I think about too is, it's a fine line between self-criticism and also like reviewing or kind of doing some self-reflection, because I think that you can go to the left sometimes where, you're just like, well, it is what it is, whatever. But we also have to, after say something wasn't successful, come back and just identify, okay, well, let me sit down and evaluate the situation. What could I have done? What was in my control? And maybe what could I have done better? I could have planned, I could have started earlier, there's a list of things. And also, be able to identify that. So I think it's a fine line with that. What would you say in that regard?
I agree. It is definitely a fine line, right? I often, when working with clients that are parents, when they're trying to juggle career and being a mom, or, a parent, or the job, and something gets lost in the shuffle because our lives are so busy, there's one thing to reflect, okay, what could I have done to prepare the night before, versus, oh, I am so this, that, the third, whatever you want to insert there, that negative thought. And I just should have known, I should have done that, right? That's critical. That's negative criticism to yourself. That it's not contributing anything to you. But reflection gives you the opportunity to say, okay, it didn't go as smooth. What are some things that I could have done to prepare? And sometimes the answer is nothing. Like Murphy's Law, things just happen. And there are those
Right.
opportunities or those moments where that reflection is going to help you prepare for the next experience or the next thing. And right, you don't
Mhm.
want to go too far where you're like, oh, everything is like seize the day, everything is fine. It doesn't matter. I don't need to think about it at all. Right? That's not helpful.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah, yeah. Because there
Yeah.
is that fine line between reflecting, just letting everything go, right? And also being so critical of yourself and so negative that you can actually get stuck in a space that's really unhealthy, where you're not going to be able to sort of come out of
Yes.
that as easy. Um,
Yes.
and
Definitely. And I wanted to touch on what you had mentioned when we're talking about self-compassion, the mindfulness piece. How would you say, when we're, working on self-compassion, how important would you say mindfulness is, and what are some tips that you can give for
yeah,
mindfulness?
I feel like mindfulness is hard too because it's one of those buzzwords where you're like, "Oh, what does that even mean?" Right? Right? I barely have
Yes.
time to breathe. What do you mean be mindful? But it literally is just taking a moment to ground yourself. Sometimes it is in
Mm-hmm.
that meeting at work where you're like, "What is going on here?" Putting your feet on the floor,
Mm-hmm.
taking a few deep breaths, giving yourself a second to
Mm-hmm.
just say, "You know what? I am enough," or this problem existed before I got here. It's going to exist
Mm-hmm.
likely when I leave. Here's what's, as you
Right.
said, what's in my boat that I can, what's in my locus of control. But it's that mindfulness is
Mm-hmm.
really connected to that self talk. It's grounding yourself and saying,
Mm-hmm.
all right, let me regulate my breathing. Let me calm myself for a moment. Let me think about, what's good in my life. Let me name 3 positive things, especially when we're running that list of all the things that are not going right today. Okay, well, what are 2 or 3 things
Yes.
that are right? Let me take
Yes.
some true deep breaths. And you'd be surprised how often people are just shallow breathing all day. You're really just truly
Mm-hmm.
not like taking a good deep breath in and letting it out. And I think mindfulness,
Absolutely.
really reaches like literally just breathing, taking a
Mm-hmm.
walk, right? People are like, I don't have time for that. But you have 20 minutes to stew in your brain about how frustrated you are about the thing that's happening, right? Or to like run a mental list of all the things you didn't do right today. Like, take a moment, get
Right.
some fresh air, change your scenery. I think about our senses.
Mm-hmm.
Do I need to move to another space
Mm-hmm.
so what I'm hearing right now is different? Do I just need to turn on a quick song and listen to 30 seconds of it? Do I need to like spray
Right.
some perfume in the room or like, change the scent? Close my
Yeah.
eyes. Do I need to like, I work also in a school. So I'm like, do I need to grab one of our squishies? Do I need to get a little fidget spinner? What's
Yeah.
something I can do to shift my senses?
Right.
Because that connects to like good mindfulness in mental health. Um, and then really like thinking about those thoughts, right? Challenging the negative thoughts. Ask
Mhm.
yourself, is this 100% true? Do I have evidence of
Yes.
this negative thought that I have?
Right.
Rephrase your thinking instead of saying that, like, oh, I'm a failure. I didn't get all this stuff done, or I'm a bad mom, or I'm a bad friend, or whatever the thing is.
Mhm.
Instead, try a phrase like, I'm learning and I'm growing. There's
Mm,
always
like that.
tomorrow. If I'm blessed enough and lucky enough, there's tomorrow. I can
Mhm.
try again. Um, Speaking kindness to yourself again, thinking about like, would I say that to a friend? Would I let a friend say that about themselves? My friends in the background, the dogs. They're big friends too. We'll keep them out.
I
Uh,
hear.
yeah, you hear them. And then acknowledging your thoughts and not letting them define you. It is
Right.
okay to say, yeah, I made that mistake, or I did snap on somebody today. I wasn't my best self, but
Mhm.
that's okay. That doesn't mean I'm the worst person ever. I had a moment,
Yes.
and that's all right.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Someone said, I've noticed that an area so many people criticize themselves is in the area of parenting. I do it daily. Definitely a weak area for me. Mm.
Yeah. And
Um,
please use those tips, right? Like reframe your thinking.
mhm.
Um, Parenting is not for the faint of heart.
Mhm. Mhm.
Parenting is not for the faint of heart. It takes a strong person to do that. And we don't say it takes a village for no reason, right? And
Right.
so give yourself some grace,
Mhm.
ground yourself, reframe that thinking. You're learning and growing. Kids don't come with manuals. We don't come with manuals. Half the time we're trying to figure out our own selves, right? Even at our bigger age of whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I do see that a lot too. Definitely that parent, that guilt.
Definitely. Someone else said that this is good, much needed. Someone else said they really like this topic. What would you say, as far as when we were talking about self-compassion, the impact of like community and like your support system? How would you say that plays a part in just self-compassion and self-criticism?
It does, because that phrase that we talked about, like, would I say it to a friend? When you're surrounding yourself around people who love you and care about you, when you're listening to other people's experiences and stories, I went to recently a really sweet Galentine's event. It was the first time I'd ever done something like
I
that.
was like, oh, that looks so fun.
It was so fun. And I didn't know all the women, but to hear these folks like pour into each other and share experiences that you were like, oh my gosh, me too. That exists for me too. When we normalize some of the things that are hard in our life, where we're not feeling like we're on this secret island of shame and guilt and like beating ourselves up.
Right.
It is beautiful to be around community and people who can say, oh, no, me too. You're not alone.
Right.
I am there with you. And sometimes that's all you need to hear. Sometimes they actually have a tip or two or like, try this. This works for me.
Right.
Every coping skill doesn't work for everybody, but sometimes someone shares something that you say, oh, I thought I was alone. I thought it was just me.
Right.
I'm not the only one feeling that way. And just the thought of not being alone in a feeling or a thought sometimes makes a world of difference. It can be really wonderful. And sometimes just like taking your mind off of it. That's also part of a coping skill, right? Like getting to escape from a thing, getting escape from something that's hard, and like sharing a laugh, sharing a smile, sharing a compliment, like can really build you up. So yeah, community matters a whole lot.
Absolutely. Sure. And I think that big piece, what you said, just normalizing, because, you know, the trick is, you know, of Satan and just so many different things where they just try to get you on your own little island and you think this is my own world and whatever. But when you're around community and then you see it, just that normalizing, just like, wow, you know, okay, I'm not alone, you know, and you can help someone else. Like your sister may be further down the road and they can say, this is how I dealt with this. They may be able to give you some tips, some tools. And like you said, just having that escape of just being able to laugh, being able to, you know, just take your mind off of it too is so therapeutic and so helpful, just when we're navigating these difficult spaces. So I love that.
Yeah.
And I would say, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, it's a skill that you have to practice too. Self-compassion can be cultivated. Yes. You just have to practice it. Yes. And as Alicia said earlier, like you have to start to just identify when you are being critical, just naming it. You don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to beat yourself up about it. You don't have to jot down or tick or mark every time you say something, but just acknowledging it. And I share in therapy often, I say, when you're having a big feeling or when you're having the shame loop is what I call it. The shame loop. It's just in your brain. It's going over and over. When you get on that train, you can stop anywhere, right? But don't unpack your suitcase and luggage in shame and blame and guilt.
I love that.
Don't stay at that stop. Okay, you can visit it for a second and like have to process it, but then you get back on. Don't take your luggage off. Don't unpack there. Don't make that your new home because it doesn't have to be. It's a stop.
Yes, I love that. It's a stop. It's not the destination. Definitely.
It's the past. You get to move through that and move on. And so something that I'll ask of the audience and of your church body is, while we're thinking about building self-compassion, I want us to start, stop, and continue. What's something you can start doing? What's something you can stop doing? And then what's something you can continue to do on your journey, right, to really having better self-compassion. So I think of, if you're like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what I'm going to start, stop, and continue doing. Maybe start with recognizing, challenging cognitive distortions, right? Just recognizing that negative inner self-talk. Stop engaging in the harsh criticism. It's going to be hard because you've been doing it. You know, like anything, any habit that we build up is hard to let go. So then I just want you to work on interrupting it, right? Oh, we stepped off the train. Okay, get back on. get back
Mhm.
on, get back to your destination,
Mhm.
and then continue acknowledging your emotions and use mindfulness
Mhm.
and remind yourself that struggling is part of being human. It
Mhm.
isn't supposed to go perfect. I know I love it when it does, okay?
Mhm.
Me, I love it when it does.
Don't we all?
Okay? But life, that's not how life works. And sometimes some of the beauty comes in how we actually move through something, how we
Mhm.
move through the challenge. There are definitely times where it's like, get us out of this.
Mhm. Mhm.
This is a hard space to be in.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
feeling really bad. But
Mhm.
there are sometimes there's beauty in moving through some of that.
Yes.
And God didn't tell us everything was going to be easy.
Right.
That was never part of the
Right.
plan. But you do have community, you have tools, and you have the power to change your mindset, to really think about what you're saying to yourself.
Mhm.
And I'm not talking toxic positivity, right? Or like everything is great and wonderful and we're just going to be perfect. No, but shifting that mindset of saying, this is challenging,
Mhm.
but, right? But I can XYZ. I
Right.
can name 3 things that are going well right now. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's just, I got out of bed, I woke up today.
Yep. Yep.
I had a roof over my head and clean clothes. My
Mhm.
car started.
Yep.
Sometimes it's that.
Yep.
And sometimes it's beautiful things like I had a really lovely Valentine's Day and I have good friends and a good church community. Like it could be some of those really big things. And it could also be some of the small things like a snow day from school.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Maybe not too many this time, but yeah, it can be something simple like that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And I think what you were saying too, when you think about post traumatic growth, like we go through these, hard seasons, but the growth that you gain from it and in it, in the mess, in the trial, whatever, it may not be comfortable, but you think about like when you get to the other side, like what you've gained from it and the people you're able to help. And it also, it allows you to, I think gratitude, like you were saying, is so important. Like even with the smallest things, gratitude does so much for us. And it allows us to really just put things into perspective when we feel like nothing is going right. Like we can always find something to be thankful for. I don't care if it's the smallest thing, the greatest thing, but gratitude is so very important. So I thank you for touching on that, and just that we need to be mindful of that. And I love what you said, the start, stop, and the continue. That's
Yeah.
something, that a tool that we can all take and apply it to our everyday lives. Definitely.
Mhm. For
Wow.
sure, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
So I definitely, want to thank you for the conversation. And I just hope that everyone takes this moment and, think about a way that they can practice that self-compassion. That we're going to be presented with different things every single day, but just be mindful of the criticism, be mindful of, the negative self-talk, all those things that, you may not even be mindful of, but like she was saying, just take time to really think about, how we're talking to ourselves and find ways that we can practice kindness to ourselves, saying positive affirmations. It's important, and especially with today's time, we're navigating through just a lot of just difficult times in the world, and we don't want to be our own worst critic. We have a lot of other things going on, so we don't want to, be a critic to ourselves.
yeah,
So is there anything you want to wrap up, or anything you wanted to say? I'm going to put her information up here, and you can tell them about yourself, your practice, all the things.
yeah. Again, remember to use that start, stop, continue. I love that when I'm learning something new or when I'm trying to practice a new skill. Oftentimes we don't even realize like, what do I need to just stop doing? Like I don't have to add anything else to my day. I don't have to do anything extra. Like, what could I just stop doing? And maybe not stop, but even just reduce, right? What's something I can reduce, right? Is there a trigger word or a thing that you go to that jumps you into that shame loop or criticism loop? Um, and then starting things, what is something, maybe it's just adding a little extra thing of gratitude before you go to bed or while you're brushing your teeth. Or my favorite is I love to say an affirmation in the car on the way to work.
That's
That
good.
is my favorite place to do it. Yep. And
That's
so find a time of day where you can do that little start, right? It doesn't have to be huge, grand gesture things.
Mhm.
And then what are you already doing? Just continue that. What are the positive things that you're doing? So, um, our our request is really that you're just a little bit kinder to yourself.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
then I am with Keystone Therapy and Solutions. So I'm the CEO and lead therapist there. And my number is on the screen. I'm at 846389011.
Oops.
And you can email me at Tolds. That's T for Tiffany Olds at KeystoneTherapy.com. And you can also look up Keystone Therapy and Solutions in Google, and you can find me that way too. And if you need a therapist or if you need some support, I'm either happy to help you connect with someone and help you find the right fit. So thank you so much for having me, and I hope to be able to see you all again.
Yes, thank you so much for taking the time. I really, really appreciate it. And again, I hope that something was said. Those that watch the replay, those that are on here now, but just really let's make it a point to be kind to ourselves this week. And just again, let's take her tip and think about it maybe on your ride to work or in the morning, saying those affirmations and saying those positive things. And let's practice kindness and let's start with ourselves. So again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Please feel free to inbox us if you need any support. Please utilize her information on the screen, and the last number is a 1. Sorry, missed that there. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in. And if you're watching the replay, thank you for watching. And again, I'll be on the